The Galactic Council station floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower. 12 different alien species lived and worked inside its walls. They came from worlds scattered across 1,000 star systems. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had no solid body at all, but they all shared one thing in common. They all needed humans. James Cole woke up at 6 in the morning just like every other day. He was a tall man with tired eyes and oil stains on his fingers that never seemed to wash off. He worked as the lead engineer on the station's power grid. The quantum reactors that kept everyone alive were his responsibility. No alien had ever learned to fix them properly. They were too unpredictable, too strange. But James understood them the way a farmer understands rain. He walked through the metal corridors and nodded at the aliens he passed. A warrior with 4 arms and red skin grunted at him. A small with silver fur and huge black eyes waved shyly. James smiled at them both. He had lived among aliens for 15 years. They were his neighbors, his friends. In the diplomatic wing, Ward was already hard at work. She was a woman in her 40s with gray streaks in her brown hair and a voice that could calm storms. Her job was to translate, not just words but meanings. Alien languages were strange, the spoken colors as much as sounds, the communicated through vibrations in stone, had learned them all. More importantly, she had learned what each species truly meant when they spoke. She could hear anger hiding behind polite words. She could sense fear dressed up as pride. Today, she sat between 2 ambassadors who hated each other. The Dominion and the Empire had been enemies for 3,000 years. They had fought wars that killed billions. Now they sat at a table and argued about trade routes while translated their words and softened their insults. The ambassador says he respects your position, told the diplomat. What the had actually said was much ruder, but knew that truth was less important than peace. On the military deck, Commander Bell ran his morning drills. He was a broad man with a shaved head and scars on his hands from a dozen battles. The peacekeeping fleet answered to the council, but everyone knew that was its true heart. Alien officers were brave. They were strong, but they fought by rules and formations passed down for centuries. They did not improvise. They did not adapt. Had once defeated a pirate fleet 3 times his size by flying his ships directly into an asteroid field. The pirates had followed, knew the asteroids. The pirates did not. He lost 2 ships. They lost 40. No alien commander would have taken that risk. No alien commander could have imagined it. Remember, told his officers during the drill, the enemy will not follow your plans, so do not follow your plans either. React, adapt, survive. The alien officers nodded, but their eyes were confused. They did not truly understand. They only trusted to understand for them. In the medical bay, Dr. Sophie Lane was saving a life. An ambassador had collapsed during a meeting. His silver fur had turned gray. His huge eyes had rolled back in his head. The alien doctors had panicked. Biology was complex. Their blood flowed in 2 directions. Their hearts beat in patterns that seemed random. The textbook said one thing. The patient's body did something else entirely. Sophie did not panic. She placed her hand on the ambassador's chest and closed her eyes. She listened. She felt. Something was wrong with the rhythm, not according to the books, according to her gut. She adjusted the treatment. The other doctors protested. She ignored them. 10 minutes later, the ambassador opened his eyes. He would live. How did you know? Asked the nurse. Sophie shrugged. I just knew. The nurse stared at her with wonder. Humans always just knew. It was terrifying. It was miraculous. High above the medical bay, in a chamber made of crystal and light, the Galactic Council held its morning session. 12 ambassadors sat in a circle. Ambassador of the collective watched the proceedings with his many eyes. He was old, even by alien standards. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had witnessed wars and plagues and miracles. And he had watched the humans arrive. They had come to the stars only 200 years ago, a blink of an eye in galactic history. They were small, weak. Their lives were laughably short. A human elder was younger than a child. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no telepathy, no special powers of any kind. And yet somehow they had become essential. Looked around the chamber. A human translator whispered in every ambassador's ear. Human guards stood at every door. Human technicians maintained every system. Human doctors staffed every hospital. Human commanders led every fleet. When had this happened? When had the galaxy become so dependent on these strange, short-lived creatures? Turned to his colleague, a diplomat named. Have you noticed, said quietly, how nothing functions without them. Snorted, they are useful tools, nothing more. Did not answer, he was not so sure. In the corridors below, James Cole finished his morning repairs. Ward completed her translation. Bell ended his drill. Sophie Lane checked on her patient one last time. The clock on the wall read 8:59 Galactic Standard Time. In exactly 1 minute, every human in the galaxy would vanish. The lights flickered once. The station hummed with its usual mechanical rhythm. Aliens walked through corridors. Ambassadors argued in chambers. Ships drifted through the void. Everything was normal. Everything was about to end. The clock struck 900. And then there was silence. James Cole's uniform fell to the floor in a heap. His tools clattered beside it. The alien engineer standing next to him screamed. In the diplomatic chamber, Ward's chair sat empty. Her translation device sparked and died. On the military deck, Bell's command seat held only his jacket and his medals. In the medical bay, Sophie Lane's coat lay on the floor. Her patient opened his eyes and found no one there. Across the station, across the fleet, across 1,000 worlds, every human being was gone. Not dead, not transported, not hidden. Just gone, as if they had never existed at all. And in the silence that followed, the galaxy began to fall apart. The screaming started immediately. Engineer stood frozen in the power control room. His 6 legs trembled. His compound eyes stared at the empty uniform on the floor. One moment, James Cole had been standing beside him, laughing about something called coffee. The next moment, James was gone, just clothes on the metal floor, just silence where a voice had been. James whispered. His voice echoed in the empty room. James, where are you? The control panels began to flash red. Warning lights filled the room like angry stars. The quantum reactor was losing stability. Power fluctuations rippled through the entire station, rushed to the main console. He had worked beside James for 3 years. He had watched James fix problems 1,000 times. Surely he could do it himself. He stared at the controls. Nothing made sense. The system was a mess of wires and patches and strange modifications. James had built it piece by piece over many years. He had fixed problems by breaking rules. He had kept the reactor alive through methods that no textbook described. Had asked him once how it all worked. James had just smiled and said, "It works because I tell it to work." Now James was gone, and the reactor did not know who to listen to anymore. In the diplomatic chamber, chaos erupted. The 12 ambassadors shouted at each other, but their words came out as noise. The translation systems were dead. Ward's algorithms had been the only thing making them work. Without her constant adjustments, without her understanding of what each species truly meant, the machines produced only static and strange sounds. Ambassador tried to speak calmly. He spoke in the common trade language that all species were supposed to know. But trade language was simple. It was meant for buying and selling. It could not express complex ideas. It could not soothe fears or calm rage. The ambassador shouted something. The ambassador shouted back. Neither understood the other. Both assumed the worst. "They have taken our humans," the roared in his own language. "They have stolen them." "This is a trick," the screamed. "They want to start a war." Raised his arms and pleaded for silence. No one listened. 3,000 years of hatred came flooding back in seconds. The peace that humans had built was falling apart like sand in water. On the military deck, panic gripped the fleet. Admiral stared at the empty command chair. Bell's jacket lay across the armrests. His medals gleamed in the light, but the man himself was nowhere to be found. "What do we do?" asked the young officer. Opened his mouth to answer. Nothing came out. He had been a soldier for 200 years. He had fought in great battles. He had led ships into combat, but he had always followed orders. He had always had a plan written by someone else. He had always trusted that humans like Bell would know what to do when plans failed. Now there was no plan, and the human was gone. A communication alert flashed on the screen. A patrol fleet on the outer edge of the system was under attack. Something had emerged from deep space, something hostile. The fleet commander was calling for instructions. "Admiral," the young officer asked again, "what are your orders?" Stared at the screen. He saw the enemy ships. He saw his own fleet. He saw 100 possible strategies, and he could not choose one. Bell would have known instantly. Bell would have seen the pattern. Bell would have found a way. But Bell was a pile of clothes on a chair. "Scatter," finally said. "Tell them to scatter and retreat." It was the safest choice. It was also the wrong choice. Without coordination, the patrol ships flew in different directions. Two of them crashed into each other in the confusion. Both exploded in silence. 40 crew members died. In the medical bay, the ambassador woke up alone. He looked around the empty room. Dr. Sophie Lane's coat lay on the floor. Her tools sat abandoned on the table. The machines beeped and hummed, but no one was there to read them. Other patients began to cry out. A warrior with a wounded arm called for help. A young with a broken shell whimpered in pain. The alien nurses rushed between beds, but they did not know what to do. They had always followed Sophie's lead. They had always trusted her instincts. A nurse named picked up Sophie's notes. She hoped to find answers. Instead, she found handwritten words in a language she barely understood. Human writing was strange. It curved and looped in ways that alien scripts did not. Sophie had made little drawings in the margins, smiley faces, hearts, tiny flowers. Did not understand any of it. She only understood that she was alone, that they were all alone. In the council chamber, Ambassador finally managed to restore some order. He stood on the central platform and projected his voice as loud as he could. "Listen to me," he shouted in trade language. "Fighting will not bring them back. We must work together." The other ambassadors paused. They looked at him with fear and anger and confusion, but they stopped shouting for a moment. "What happened to them?" asked the ambassador. "I do not know," admitted. "Where did they go?" "I do not know." "How do we get them back?" Closed his many eyes. The truth was heavy in his chest. "I do not know," he said for the third time. "But I know this. The power grid is failing. Our translators are gone. Our military has no leadership. Our doctors do not know how to save us. We built our entire civilization on human shoulders, and now those shoulders have disappeared." The chamber fell silent. The truth was too big to deny. "We never learned to walk on our own," continued. His voice was soft now, sad. "We let them carry us. We let them solve our problems. We let them think for us. And now we are falling. We are falling, and we do not know how to stop." The lights flickered. Somewhere deep in the station, alarms began to ring. 10 minutes had passed since the humans vanished. The station had 50 more minutes of power left. And no one knew how to save it. The station was dying. Everyone could feel it. The lights grew dim. The air grew thin. The walls groaned as power systems failed one by one. And in the corridors, the different species began to turn on each other. The warriors gathered in their section of the station. They sealed the doors and armed themselves with weapons. Their leader, a massive soldier named, stood at the front with his 4 arms crossed. "They did this," he growled. "They have always hated us. They have always wanted us dead. Now they have found a way to destroy us without firing a shot." His soldiers nodded. They believed him. They wanted to believe him. Believing in an enemy was easier than facing the truth. The truth was that no one knew what happened. The truth was that they were helpless. On the other side of the station, they had the same idea. "They are behind this," said their commander, a silver-furred officer named Vex. "They are warmongers. They have always been warmongers. This is their plan to start a new conflict." The soldiers checked their weapons. They watched the corridors with suspicious eyes. Trust was dying as fast as the power grid. The collective made a different choice. They retreated to their section and sealed every entrance. They trusted no one. They would wait. They would watch. They would let the other species destroy each other. Smaller species panicked completely. The tiny creatures with wings and bright feathers rushed to their ships. They wanted to escape. They wanted to fly far away from this dying station. But their ships were not made for long journeys. They needed supplies. They needed fuel. They needed help. They got none. 3 ships launched at the same time. In their fear, the pilots did not coordinate. They did not communicate. 2 ships collided near the docking bay. The explosion killed everyone on board. The 3rd ship flew into the void alone, without enough fuel to reach any safe world. Ambassador watched the disaster from the council chamber. He saw the explosion through the great window. He saw the fire bloom and die in the emptiness of space. He lowered his head in grief. "We are killing ourselves," he whispered. "We do not need an enemy. We are the enemy." In the power control room, Engineer was sweating. His exoskeleton was not made for sweating, but terror had a way of breaking all rules. The quantum reactor was screaming, not in a way that made sound, but in a way that made the walls shake and the instruments go crazy. It was about to explode, or collapse, or do something else terrible, did not know which. He only knew that he was running out of time. He had tried everything in the manual. Nothing worked. The reactor did not follow the manual. James Cole had changed it too many times. He had fixed it with methods that made no sense. He had kept it alive with tricks and guesses and something he called gut feeling. Did not have gut feeling. He had training. He had rules. He had procedures, and none of them were saving him now. He looked at James's empty uniform on the floor. Tears formed in his compound eyes. "Why did you leave?" he asked the empty clothes. "Why did you leave me alone?" On the outer rim of the system, the patrol fleet was in ruins. 2 ships destroyed, 12 more damaged. The enemy forces had retreated, but the victory felt like defeat. Admiral sat in his command chair and stared at the reports. So many dead, so many wounded, so many mistakes. He had given the order to scatter. It was the safe choice, the careful choice, but it was wrong. Bell would not have scattered. Bell would have attacked. He would have found a weakness. He would have turned disaster into triumph. Did not know how to do that. He only knew how to follow rules, and rules did not win battles. Humans won battles. A young officer approached him carefully. "Admiral," she said, "the crew is asking what we should do next. They are scared. They need orders." Looked at her. She was young, barely 50 years old. A child by standards. She should not have been in a war. She should not have been carrying this burden. But the humans were gone, and burdens fell on whoever remained. "Tell them to hold position," said. "Tell them to wait for further orders." "From who, Admiral?" Had no answer. Back on the station, a group of scientists gathered in the research lab. They were the minds of 12 species. They had studied stars and black holes and the deepest mysteries of the universe. Now they studied something much simpler. Empty clothes. James Cole's uniform, Ward's dress, Bell's jacket, Sophie Lane's coat. The scientists examined them with every tool they had. They scanned for energy. They searched for traces. They looked for clues. They found nothing. "No teleportation signature," said a researcher. "No dimensional shift. No matter conversion. No evidence of any technology at all." "Then what happened?" asked the scientist. "I do not know. It is as if they simply stopped existing. One moment they were here. The next moment they were not, like waking from a dream." A scientist laughed bitterly. "Maybe we were the dream. Maybe they dreamed us into existence, and now they have stopped dreaming." No one laughed with him. The idea was too frightening. A young researcher, one of the few who had not fled, spoke quietly from the corner. "What if they chose to leave?" Everyone turned to look at him. "What if they got tired of us?" the continued. "We never thanked them. We never treated them as equals. We used them. We needed them, but we never told them that they mattered." The room fell silent. Outside the window, the station's lights flickered again. The power was fading. The air was growing thinner. The temperature was dropping. 25 minutes had passed since the humans vanished, and the galaxy was running out of time. 25 minutes of power remained. 25 minutes before the station went dark forever. Engineer sat on the floor of the control room. He had tried everything, every procedure, every protocol, every emergency backup in the manual. Nothing worked. The reactor was dying and he could not save it. He picked up James Cole's notebook from the floor. It was old and worn. The pages were filled with human writing, strange loops and curves that could barely read. James had always kept this notebook close. He had written in it every day, notes about the reactor, thoughts about problems, little jokes that only humans understood. Turned the pages slowly. Most of it made no sense, but then he found something. A drawing. It showed the reactor core. James had sketched it with simple lines. Arrows pointed to different parts, and in the margin, in clear letters that even could read, James had written something. "In case I'm gone, trust your instincts. You're smarter than you think." Stared at the words. His hands trembled. Trust your instincts. Had never trusted his instincts. He had always trusted rules. He had always trusted procedures. Instincts were for humans. Instincts were dangerous and wild and unpredictable. But James had trusted. James had believed in him. And now James was gone. Looked at the reactor console. Red lights flashed everywhere. Warning messages filled the screen. Every rule said he should evacuate. Every procedure said he should run. Instead closed his eyes. He thought about all the times he had watched James work. James never followed the rules exactly. He bent them. He broke them. He made things work through pure stubbornness. He treated the reactor not like a machine but like a living thing. He talked to it. He listened to it. He understood it. Opened his eyes. "Okay," he whispered to the reactor. "Let us try something stupid." He reached for a control that no manual said to touch. He adjusted a setting that no procedure allowed. He did something that made no logical sense. The reactor screamed louder. The warnings, for one terrible moment, thought he had killed everyone. Then the lights turned green. The reactor stabilized, the power held, the station lived. He laughed until he cried. He had done it. He had thought like a human. He had trusted his instincts, and it had worked. In the medical bay, Nurse faced her own impossible choice. A warrior lay on the table before her. His forearms hung limp. His red skin had turned gray. His hearts were failing, all three of them. The warrior was dying and did not know how to save him. She had read every file. She had followed every protocol. Nothing worked. Biology was too different, too alien, too strange. Then she remembered something. Dr. Sophie Lane used to hum while she worked. Little songs without words. She would close her eyes and hum and somehow know exactly what to do. Had asked her once how she knew. "Medicine is not just science," Sophie had said. "It is art. It is feeling. You have to listen to the patient, not just hear them. Listen." Closed her eyes. She placed her hands on the warrior's chest. She tried to listen. At first she heard nothing, just the beeping of machines, just the chaos outside, just her own fear pounding in her ears. Then she felt something. A rhythm, faint and weak, not in the warrior's hearts but somewhere deeper. A pulse of life that the machines could not detect. It was out of sync. It was fighting itself. It needed help. Did not know what she was doing. She only knew that she had to try. She adjusted the treatment. She changed the medicine. She did something that no textbook taught. The warrior's eyes opened. His skin turned red again. His hearts found their rhythm. He looked at with confusion and gratitude. "You saved me," he whispered. Shook her head. "Number Sophie Lane saved you. I just listened." On the military deck, Admiral received terrible news. A second enemy fleet had appeared, larger than the first. They were heading straight for the station. They had seen the chaos. They had smelled weakness. They were coming to finish what the first attack had started. Looked at his officers. They looked back at him with fear in their eyes. No one knew what to do. No one had a plan. Then remembered Bell's last training session. Had stood before the officers and spoken about war. Not about tactics or formations or weapons. About something else entirely. "War is not about strength," had said. "It is about knowing when not to fight. The greatest victory is the battle you prevent. The greatest warrior is the one who makes peace." Had not understood at the time. Fighting was what warriors did. Peace was for diplomats. But now, looking at the approaching fleet, understood. He could fight, he might even win, but he would lose ships, he would lose lives, he would weaken the station's defenses even more. And for what? Pride, revenge, proof that warriors were strong. Bell would not have fought. Bell would have found another way. Turned to his communication officer. "Open a channel to the enemy fleet," he said. His officers gasped. Talking to enemies was shameful. It was weakness. It was against everything they believed. "Admiral," the communication officer asked. "Do it," commanded, "now." The channel opened. The enemy commander appeared on the screen. He was a pirate lord with skin and hungry eyes. "Are you surrendering?" the pirate asked with a laugh. "No," said calmly. "I am offering you a choice. Leave now and you live, stay and I destroy you." The pirate laughed harder. "You are weak. Your station is failing. Your fleet is broken. What threat can you make?" Smiled. It was a strange smile. A human smile. Something he had learned from Bell. "You attacked us once today," said. "You lost half your ships. We lost two. Do you really want to test us again?" The pirate's laughter faded. He looked at his officers. They whispered among themselves. It was a bluff. Knew it was a bluff. The first battle had been a disaster, but the pirates did not know that. They only knew that their first attack had failed. "We will return," the pirate growled, "when you are weaker." "You are welcome to try," said. The channel closed. The enemy fleet turned away. In the council chamber, Ambassador finally brought the species together. He did not use fancy words. He did not make grand speeches. He simply told the truth. "We are dying," he said, "all of us together, and we will keep dying until we learn to help each other. The humans are gone, they are not coming back. We can blame each other, we can fight each other, we can hate each other, or we can survive." The ambassadors looked at each other, old enemies, ancient rivals, species that had hated each other for thousands of years. Then the ambassador stood up. He walked across the chamber to the ambassador. He extended one of his 4 hands. "I do not trust you," he said, "but I will work with you for now." The hesitated, then he took the hand. "For now," he agreed. One by one the other species joined, not in friendship, not in love, but in survival. The light stopped flickering. The station stabilized. 55 minutes had passed since the humans vanished. The galaxy had not fallen. Not yet. 1 year had passed since the humans vanished. The galaxy was still broken. Supply lines remained tangled. Conflicts still erupted between old enemies. Systems failed without warning. Ships got lost without human navigators to guide them. But the galaxy was alive, and slowly, painfully, it was learning to walk on its own. Ambassador stood at the center of the Galactic Council station. The great chamber had been rebuilt. New lights glowed where old ones had died. New systems hummed where old ones had failed. It was not as elegant as before. It was not as efficient, but it worked. In front of stood a memorial. It was simple, a single human handprint cast in steel, the strongest metal in the known universe. The handprint would last forever, long after the station crumbled, long after the stars burned out. This small mark would remain. Beneath the handprint, words were carved in every known language. "They carried us when we could not walk. Now we must learn to run." Looked at the handprint for a long moment. He remembered Ward's smile. He remembered how she softened his words and made peace seem possible. He missed her. He missed all of them. The chamber filled with beings from every species. Warriors stood beside diplomats. Scientists floated near artists. Enemies stood together. Strangers became allies. It was not perfect. It would never be perfect, but it was a beginning. Raised his arms and spoke. "1 year ago we faced the end of everything we knew. The humans vanished. Our power failed. Our systems collapsed. We turned on each other like frightened animals. We nearly destroyed ourselves in 1 hour. He paused. The chamber was silent. But we did not die. We survived. Not because we were strong, not because we were wise, but because a few brave souls remembered what the humans taught us." Engineer stood in the crowd. He wore a new uniform now, lead engineer of the entire station. The first non-human to hold that title. Around him stood dozens of students from every species. He was teaching them to think like humans, to improvise, to trust their instincts, to solve problems with creativity instead of rules. It was hard. Aliens did not think the way humans did. They followed patterns. They obeyed logic. Breaking free was painful and strange. But slowly they were learning. Had mounted James Cole's notebook in a glass case in his classroom. Students came from across the galaxy to see it, to read the strange human words, to study the drawings and diagrams, to understand the mind that had kept them all alive. "James Cole taught me something important," often told his students. "He taught me that being smart is not enough. You must also be brave. You must try things that might fail. You must trust yourself even when you are afraid." In the medical bay, nurse had become doctor. She had founded the first cross-species medical institute. Healers from every world came to study there. They did not just learn biology and chemistry. They learned to listen, to feel, to trust their instincts. They learned that medicine was not just science. It was art. It was love. Sophie Lane's portrait hung in the entrance hall. Below it, her words were carved in stone. "Listen to the patient, not just hear them. Listen." Visited the portrait every morning. She talked to it sometimes, told Sophie about the lives she had saved, the students she had taught, the way the galaxy was slowly healing. She did not know if Sophie could hear her, but it made her feel less alone. In the military academy, Admiral had retired from active command. He taught now. Young officers from every species sat in his classroom and learned about war, not how to fight, how to prevent, how to think, how to adapt. Bell's medals hung on the wall. Beside them, a single sentence was written. "The greatest victory is the battle you prevent." Had thought about that sentence every day for a year. He had been a warrior his whole life. He had believed that strength meant violence, that honor meant combat, That glory came from bloodshed. Bell had shown him a different way. Strength is not about hurting, told his students. It is about protecting. A true warrior fights only when there is no other choice, and even then he fights to end the fighting, not to extend it. His students listened. Some believed him, some did not, but seeds had been planted. In time they would grow. In the council chamber, Ambassador finished his speech. "We have lost much," he said. "We have suffered much. We have made mistakes that cost lives, but we have also learned. We have grown. We have become in some small way worthy of the humans who saved us." He looked up at the stars through the great window. "I do not know where they went. I do not know if they will ever return, but I believe in my deepest heart that they are watching us. They are waiting to see what we become, and one day when we are truly ready, they will come back to us." The chamber applauded, not with joy, with hope, with determination, with a promise to do better. After the ceremony, a young child approached. She was tiny, even by standards. Her feathers were bright blue. Her eyes were huge and curious. "Ambassador," she asked, "can I ask you something?" Knelt down to her level. "Of course, little one." What were humans really like? Thought for a long moment. He remembered James Cole's laughter, Ward's patience, Bell's courage, Sophie Lane's kindness. He remembered 1,000 small moments, 1,000 ordinary miracles. "They were small," he said finally, "smaller than us, fragile, they broke easily. Their lives were short. They lived for only a few decades, a blink of an eye by our standards." The child looked confused, but everyone says they were amazing. Smiled, it was a human expression. He had learned it from Ward. "They were amazing," he agreed. "Not because they were strong, not because they lived long, not because they had special powers. They were amazing because they cared. They helped strangers. They fixed problems that were not their own. They built bridges between enemies. They held the entire universe together without ever asking for thanks." He looked up at the stars again. "They were the best of us," he said softly, "and we are trying to become worthy of them." The child nodded solemnly. She did not fully understand, but one day she would. Far away, beyond the edge of known space, in a place that no telescope could see, something watched. They had not died, they had not disappeared forever, they had simply stepped back, stepped aside, given the galaxy room to grow. They watched through means that aliens could not understand. They saw the memorial, they heard the speeches, they felt the hope spreading like light across the stars. And somewhere in a place beyond time and space, James Cole smiled. "They are learning," he said. Ward nodded. "It took them long enough." Bell crossed his arms. "They will make more mistakes." Sophie Lane laughed. "That is how everyone learns." They watched together, waiting, hopping, believing. One day, when the galaxy was truly ready, they would return. But not yet. Not yet. The stars burned on, the galaxy turned, life continued. And in the hearts of 1,000 species, humanity lived forever.